honored to talk to you about this because, oh my gosh, what a show and what a presentation. This is something that, of course, Bono is a very special person, and his music is very special, but he always manages to do something when, within the band that's different, that's breaking new ground. And, like he says in this, this is kind of supposed to be a book tour, but that kind of level of presentation, I mean, like it must be great to be the one that captured it, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was, I was thrilled when Andrew called me to do the movie. I love Andrew. He and I did episodes of Mindhunter together. That's how I know him. And he told me what he wanted to do. And I'm a U2 fan. I'm a Bono fan. So the opportunity filled me with excitement. And then when he explained the idea of making the film in black and white and sort of what the show was, I hadn't read the book, to be honest, at the beginning, and he sent me the book and I read it, um, and it's quite rare in a career to end up with a film like this. I think the movie is really quite thoughtful, and you see someone really in a vulnerable place revealing their life to the audience and trying to figure out a way to capture that in an elegant way. Was an exciting challenge, really, and something that hopefully we accomplished. I think we certainly took some creative risks, which I think is always should be part of the process of filmmaking. But yeah, no, it was, I'm certainly proud of the work and proud of the work everybody on the crew did.
Yeah. And I remember meeting Andrew years ago and just feeling a kind of like intensity from him, like like he deeply cares about what he does. And so it must have been interesting conversations between you guys about just the art of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I try hard in my life to um, work with directors that are passionate and thoughtful and considerate, and and they care deeply about their work. I mean, I think that the work we do is so difficult anyway. If you're going to do it with any intention, if you're going to do it with any pride or any creative integrity, it is by design difficult. And so to go down the road, it's for me it's only worth doing if I go down the journey with somebody um that is really committed and tenacious with their work. Because otherwise it's a miserable experience. It's far better if you're going to work hard. It's far better to end up with something you're proud of, or at least you feel like you tried something. And that's certainly my experience with Andrew. Is he is someone who is um, swings for the fences every time, and uh, that's a wonderful environment to work in. It's sometimes challenging, but that's the name of the game. That's why we get in it.
Yeah. Well, 25 years into what I do, plus having done this in high school and college, I've never interviewed Bono. However, I was coming out of I had seen his show in Philadelphia the night before on the pop tour, and I was in New York. I was walking down the street, and I see commotion ahead of me. And who is it but Bono coming out of a restaurant? And I said, I gotta say something. And so I said, I saw your show last night. It's fantastic. He said, you did. And he said, where did you sit? And I was like, and I still had the ticket in my pocket. And I showed it to him. And he said, section 206 or whatever. He goes, was it a good seat? Could you see everything? And then he wanted to know if I liked the song selection. And that was like, that was what was important to him. If I thought it was a good
Yeah,
selection, the people around me enjoyed it. And I was like, I was thinking with that kind of, yeah, usually people, in that kind of status would just, oh, hey, thanks, man. But he stopped dead in his tracks and wanted to know. And I was, nobody. So that kind of attention, did you kind of feel that back from him?
very much. I find Bono to be incredibly generous and considerate and thoughtful and curious,
Hmm.
you know, um, and and quite humble, actually. I think that it's easy for people um, to get caught up in celebrity and all of that, of course, but in my experience with him, he's someone who was very interested in what we were doing, curious about it. Um, wanted to learn about how we were lighting it, how we were photographing it. And he was, also someone who um, was very much a proponent and a champion of the process of shooting it in black and white. And the movie is obviously very stylized, um, which can make certain people uncomfortable, and he said, no, 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 this is what we're doing. I believe in this idea. I believe in this approach, which in part made the movie possible, and certainly what we were trying to do visually with it. And you know that's um, that's an amazing thing, and it's not always the case like that. But no, I find him to be an absolutely extraordinary human being, someone who cares very much about humanity, and but also his family and his immediate friends, and making sure that everyone has a nice time. He cares deeply about the people that work for him, the people that help him in his endeavors. And I think that rubs off. Uh,
Yeah.
you know.
Is there something that he told you particularly that's stuck with you? Because he's a man full of great stories and wisdom and all that stuff. But I imagine there's probably something he said to you that kind of just won't ever forget.
Um, yeah, let me think about that a little bit. Like,
Hmm.
he just said, he said to me once, just try to get it, just try to capture the truth,
Hmm.
you know. Um, and I think, in this case, you're up there and you're performing, and it is a performance, but it's quite a personal story in this case, and it's quite a vulnerable thing what he's doing, talking about his experience with his father, and talking about his struggles as a child, and his family, and the things that fill him with fear and excitement and joy and sadness, etc. And humor.
Hmm.
And um, the camera captures all of those things differently when it's in the 15th row than it does when it's 18 inches from his face, you know. And so, and part of our approach was to say, look, we're going to do a concert film, which is more or less what this is, but we're going to break the rules of concert films, and we're going to put the camera on the stage with you, and really, and bring it very close to your face, and allow you, in the interest of capturing that truth. I think, capturing those emotions, in an honest kind of, uh, very very revealing way. And I think that, he spoke um quite elegantly about, the idea of show business and bringing the audience behind the curtain. And once you bring the audience up on stage, you sort of you break the um that safe kind of wall between the audience and the performer. you know um and that's really what cinema does. That's, I think, part of why cinema is such an effective storytelling tool, is because you can move the audience around the stage. You can move them inside someone's head and then over their shoulder. And you can play with point of view in a way that just plain doesn't work in the theater.
Yeah.
um
Absolutely. And did you start in photography? Because there's so many points in this movie, and most of them, where you could just hit pause and it looks like a great portrait.
oh, thank you. I did. My mother taught me to. She gave me an old Nikon when I was maybe 6, 7 years old, and I learned to shoot film, and black and white film. And um but to be honest with you, I never, certainly in my younger years, I've come to really enjoy photography.
Mhm.
But the thing about photography is it's quite a solitary activity,
Mhm.
which can be really therapeutic and nice. But it's for me, it's like I really like the communal aspect of the movie set, and I like helping a director make their movie. And I like that the relationship that you develop with the actors, with the director, with the other people that are involved in making the movie. And you're sort of doing it together. So that my training in photography was helpful, and my training in lighting was helpful in this movie. but I also did, quite a bit of theater in my younger years, and theater lighting and stuff as well, which informed some of this, obviously. But yeah, I mean, and thank you for saying that. We certainly tried hard to make them, make it nice to look at. That's
Yeah,
for
you
sure.
really did. Well, and I know people will look up to what you do and they think, see, I want to do that. I want to make beautiful art. But certainly, easier said than done. So what kind of advice would you give to somebody that wants to follow in your footsteps?
Um, just be prepared to fail, I think, is the best advice, and try. I think that um, you know, I think that um, I think it's important to go for it, like really just go for it in every case. I think people are really worried about what other people think. They're worried about whether or not the work they produce is going to be appreciated. Um, I think it's quite easy to make stuff that everyone else likes,
Mhm,
actually, but that is never really the in that case, from a creative standpoint, it's never really yours, if you're making it for someone else.
mhm,
Um, so I think that, for me, the thing that's like most important, if you're going to be proud of it, to say, okay, cool, I stand behind this work, and this was where we saw it when we were on the set, the director and the actor and I, or whoever you're making it with. When you walk away and you say, yeah, that was made with intention, and we stand behind this work, and we care about it, and this speaks to what we were trying to do and trying to communicate to the audience. That's like the most important thing, and I think that that's when stuff works the best. And then it's also when things work terribly too, of course, but it's the most honest type of creative endeavor. I guess is what
absolutely.
I'm saying, if that makes sense. That's a
No,
long-winded answer to your question.
no, no, it sure does. Well, and my co-host is Drew Pearson, one of our great Dallas Cowboys, caught the Hail Mary, went in the Hall of Fame. And so we love asking people their Hail Mary moment, which is that moment in your life or career you just had to go for it and it worked out for you. What do you suppose that was for you?
Well, I think, in my case, it was certainly Mindhunter. You know, I have not been um, I have not been shooting professionally that long, really. I've had a long career in the movie business. I've been in the movie business, most of my adult life, but my cinematography career is actually quite short at this point. And David Fincher called me. God, what was it now? 10 years ago now, to go do the first season of Mindhunter, and I hadn't really been a director of photography at all. Um, I had very little experience. I had, shot some commercials and some short films and some documentaries and things, but nothing of that scale. And he said, "No, I believe in you. I believe in your point of view. I think you're the type of collaborator I need, and I want you to do it." And um, that was an incredibly uh, intimidating decision, that ultimately set a number of changes in motion in my life. And I said, so yeah, I'm going to go for it. And if I fail, I fail, but at least I'll never sleep. If I say no, I'll always regret it. And
Yeah.
you know, and so yeah, it changed my life. That decision and an opportunity completely changed my life.
Yeah. And so now where do you keep the Oscar?
It's on a bookshelf. It's on a bookshelf
Yeah,
somewhere. Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. Well, what
Yeah.
do you keep in mind that kind of keeps you on that right path that kind of that you've been on that led you to this point?
I think my family, my wife and I, we have a young daughter, and she was recently born, and that's um, really given me, a much better perspective on the things that are important in life. I think, um, and it's, I I just try now, because I value the time with them so much more,
Hmm.
than I did before. I mean, obviously your family is always important to you, but I think it's not until you become a parent that you realize, how little, how poorly you managed your free time before. And and now for me, I think if I'm going to go somewhere for 14 hours and make a film with somebody, on a long schedule, it, there's no other reason to do it than than to try and do it as best as you possibly can, because it's otherwise it's so demanding on your life that it's not worth it, for me. So, um, and I do it for that because if I'm going to be away, at least one day I want her to pull up the work, and her to say, well, yeah, he was gone that day, but look what he made, and that hopefully makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, as a father of a daughter that changed my life, I can definitely appreciate that. That's beautiful. Well, and in this, I think that there's a lot for people to get out of it. Is there something that you sort of took away, or that you want other people to sort of hone in on? Because there's a lot going on here besides just the great entertainment value.
Well, I think, it's for me, I think the process of documentary film and documentary film in general, uh, I think is sort of the purest type of
Yeah,
filmmaking. Um, and it's something I have done some of, but not enough of. Um, and I think, getting the opportunity, the gift, quite honestly, of the privilege of helping someone tell their story in that personal way is a really lovely thing, and I think, um, that's something that I haven't forgotten after we made that movie, the sort of the joy um, and the privilege of someone saying, "Hey, I want you to be involved in the story of my life," and that's not something that's very common in the endeavor of filmmaking. It's often something far more superficial. So, uh,
yeah.
yeah, it just certainly has been, something I've been thinking about.
Oh, that's wonderful. And of course, the movie could have been in color, but I'm so glad it was in black and white. But was that more your doing, or Andrew, or Bono?
No, that was Andrew. It was Andrew and Bono, actually. Was something I would have, if Andrew had called me and he said, I want to make the movie in color, that would have been fine, obviously.
Yeah,
That's of course. I certainly am behind and support the idea, and I think it was a good choice. I think it was the right choice ultimately. Quite strongly, I believe that. Um, and it wasn't necessarily a popular choice. It was something that we had to campaign for a bit, and um, because it's a bold one.
yeah,
Um, but I think, in the end, the movie is about, I think, um, the it can be quite a lonely place being a performer on a stage. You're quite isolated. And he's talking about something, in many cases, many scenes in the movie, they're very personal stories, and they're very honest, quiet stories. And so if you limit the things that the audience can look at, and you limit the colors, you limit all the distractions, and you distill it all down, and you pull it all away, um, and you really just make it about his face on stage and his words, and very simple, then I think that's, in the case of this movie, the right choice.
yeah,
And that was what we were trying to do, was really like kind of make it very, very, very simple.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Oh,
anyway.
that's wonderful. Well, last thing, I can't wait to see what you do next. What do you have coming up for us?
Oh, thanks. I just finished a film with Ridley Scott called The Dog Stars.
Yeah.
Um, and starring Josh Brolin and Margaret Qualley and Jacob Elordi, and that was a wonderful experience. We shot in Italy.
Hmm.
Um, so that's being cut right now. It's in post production at the moment, and then I'm doing a film with David Fincher now, which is the sequel, sort of the second iteration. I don't even know what to call it, really, of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Quentin Tarantino script. So, yeah, so we're working on that movie now, and I'm excited to share both those with the audience when we're done. It's
Yeah.
the both am proud of, certainly proud of the work I did with Ridley, and we just started with David, but he and I, um, it's always a amazing experience with him. So,
Yeah.
hopefully people enjoy them.
That's wonderful. Hey, what a blessing of a life and career, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, feeling really blessed, and yeah, it's a wonderful gift for sure.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time and the wonderful answers. Really appreciate you. Congratulations on the great work and looking forward to all the rest.
Thanks, Paul.